Despite all, subscription services, everything else, despite all these legal ways of getting music, online piracy persists, and we think we need some help with a solution. But we also think there's a role for technology. This is a technological problem. It's perfectly appropriate to look for a technological solution too. Filtering is one such technology. It isn't perfect, but it works, and it has lots of advantages. It's a very targeted approach. It doesn't stop all copyrighted works. It only stops the copyrighted works that have actually been claimed by copyright owners. So it's very targeted. It can distinguish between infringing, non-infringing transmissions. You don't have to worry about garage bands or other people getting caught. So I think that's another great benefit. It doesn't give rise, or it certainly needn't give rise to any privacy concerns because it can operate automatically and anonymously, and the technology keeps improving. So basically, we like filtering as an option and think it should be explored more and more. There's no doubt that encryption is an issue that would have to be faced. Certainly, there are ways that it could be addressed now. Filters can be put in the applications, for example. One could have a filter on the end user's computer that would actually eliminate any benefit from encryption, because if you want to hear it, you would need to decrypt it, and at that point the filter could work. Why would somebody put that on their machine? They wouldn't likely want to do that. They do that when it benefits them, such as for viruses and so on and so forth. That's the sort of thing that could be enforced at the modem or something that's put in by an ISP. So there are ways that it could be addressed. I don't think you should underestimate the educational benefit of these kinds of things. A lot of this is basically letting people know that what you're doing here is not okay. And for a lot of people, that actually makes a difference in terms of their behavior, and very often they will resort to legitimate means thereafter. When people start moving to encryption and so on, they know that they're engaging in illegal conduct, and there's a benefit to drawing a clear line, because it was the lack of clarity of that line that's made for a lot of the problems that we're facing today. Record companies and copyright owners rely on fair use as much or more than anybody, because everything that they do is built on things that other people have done. So fair use is very important to us too. But let's not let that be the excuse that stops the development of technology that can be beneficial in the long run. If we held filtering to the same standard as everything else, we wouldn't use seat belts, we wouldn't use airbags, we wouldn't buy iPods with those lousy batteries, but we don't. So let's be realistic about a standard that basically recognizes that fair use needs to be respected, and move to that rather than just say don't do anything because you can't solve the problem. In Europe, there has been much more of a regulatory approach to these issues. That hasn't been the case in the US. I don't think anybody here is trying to re-legislate this issue. We're much more interested in finding a marketplace way of going about this. AT&T and other companies that are rethinking their position on this kind of traffic are doing so not just because it may be right, but because their business interests are driving them in that direction. When they can't serve their customers well because 5% of their user base is using up 50, 60, 70% of the bandwidth, that's a business problem. Bandwidth shaping that every university in the country uses is really a form of filtering. But it's a way for a network administrator to say, this kind of traffic is going to go through readily, and this kind of traffic isn't. Nobody doubts that those administrators are trying to make the choices the best they can to protect their networks and so on, but it can be described as a form of filtering. Filtering can also be a way of identifying stuff so that you can do notification systems. That's what AT&T is looking at a lot right now, which is if we let people know that what they're doing is illegal, they may stop doing it. Just a notice might make a huge difference. Tech comes within filtering, but not necessarily blocking or stopping the transmission, but rather using it as part of a notification system.
There have been some comments back and forth in the media in the last couple of weeks about the right of consumers to rip their own legally purchased CDs and put them on their MP3 players. Now that you're here and in front of this audience, I'd like to find out, if I go and buy a CD in the store, and try to put it on my iPod, am I breaking the law?
Yep.
We've had to correct the Washington Post story on this that suggested that we were taking a legal position that it's illegal to do that. We have not taken that legal position, and in fact, if you look at our website and look at the website of musicunited.org, which is actually of all the major music industry organizations in the United States, they all say that ripping for personal use and so on is unobjectionable. We don't take a position on legality. There are all sorts of implications if you take a position on legality, which go well beyond the practice. The first sale doctrine comes into play. All sorts of things change because of the collateral impact of whether this is legal or not. So what we've done is the best thing we could, which is to say nobody in the music industry has ever objected, and I think our actions speak for themselves. We've brought a whole lot of lawsuits against people engaged in peer-to-peer file sharing. No one has ever had any kind of claim made for personal use copying, and we have affirmatively said over and over again, enjoy it. It's a good commercial and consumer experience. We want people to have it so that they will come back and buy more. Put it on your iPod, burn an extra copy, and I just want to point out that that makes us the most permissive copyright industry. You won't get the same kind of statements from any other copyrighted work. You can't copy motion pictures. Software is usually uncopyable. Video games can't be copied. The music industry has said no objection. That's our position.
So all right, well, we are out of time, I think.
So the translation is, we won't say it's legal, but we won't sue you.
Well, if we
are out of time, and I think we've also moved to a topic that is not